right.
We are
Hey,
live
guys.
now.
Perfect. We're live. Okay. Hey guys, this is Jan from DoraHacks, and welcome to this workshop. We're super excited to host this hackathon, which is Avalanche Frontier, Decentralized Consumer Application Hackathon, and it's like the third workshop of our workshop series. Before we kick this off, let me briefly introduce the background of this hackathon. As the largest Web3 multi-chain developer incentive platform, it's an honor for DoraHacks to host this hackathon along with Avalanche. And we're looking forward to see all these incredible projects building on top of Avalanche. And today we're like super happy to have Harish from Covalent here to do a workshop which is about building modular data-powered UIs using GoldRush kit. And without further ado, let's welcome Harish to start. And if there's like any questions in the meanwhile, please just drop them in the comments on Binance Live and on YouTube, and we will answer them. So feel free to start when you're ready.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you for having me. Thanks for organizing this this amazing hackathon. And we've taken part in several of them with the Avalanche ecosystem, and are always generally very impressed with the quality of the submissions, and obviously the passion of the developer ecosystem. So a great opportunity for us, and it was a no-brainer for us to take part. So today I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about how you can build these data-powered UIs using a new kit that we recently launched called GoldRush, and I just shared the link for it. So if you want to follow along, you can actually go to the open source GitHub repo, fork it, and try along. So the idea here is Covalent, I think, is known for a broad-based data indexer. We index over 200 plus chain, including the Avalanche C chain, as well as many of the subnet mainnets and testnets. And so in order to make it easy for developers and builders to access this data, we started with sort of the first interface to the underlying data, which was the API, the unified API. And so, as a developer, you can use any existing stack that you're comfortable with, and you're just pulling and making, standard API calls. And then sort of building on from there, we focused on another level of abstraction. So this was the set of SDKs, including a TypeScript and a Python SDK that we launched. And that was, again, meant to speak the language of the developer and be able to communicate with them using a tool that they could just natively incorporate into their existing stack. And GoldRush is meant to be this next layer of abstraction where we've got these beautifully designed front-end components for doing some common things ready to go. And we'll kind of walk through what some of these components look like. Okay. Is it just me, or is the screen also shaking from your end, Jan?
It looks good.
It looks okay?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just see what's going on here. It looks like my screen briefly froze. Oh, sorry, I think we're back here. Okay, so a challenge that we're trying to address here is, with respect to blockchain data, and we're talking about public blockchains here. There are blind spots, even though we're talking about public blockchains. Anyone in theory has access to the data that's stored in this distributed ledger. But when you sort of think about the process as a developer trying to access this data, you realize that there are all these challenges. So even seemingly simple transfers, when you take a look at the underlying sort of transaction log, you realize that they involve a series of potentially complex contract executions. If you've ever used something like a DEX aggregator, and you actually take a look at the transaction sort of log of, what seemingly on the front end is just a simple swap, you see how many different layers of complexity are involved as the aggregator sort of routes the paths through very different set of exchanges, and each of them having their own transaction log. So on the surface, it looks pretty simple, but when you actually try to pull the data, it's messy and noisy and looks very complicated. Data availability challenges. So I know data availability in general is a popular theme these days. What we're talking about here in particular is ensuring that you've got access to historical data, and how do you actually get that in sort of cost efficient manner. If you're talking about some of these larger blockchains and you got to run an archive node, it could be very large hosting costs involved to be able to access that by yourself. So data is there, but there could be challenges with actually trying to access it. Off-chain data behind centralized servers. So we've seen this quite a bit with obviously with pricing data, and then obviously also with like NFT assets, where a lot of the underlying sort of the image and the metadata could be living on some other external server, and you have to try to fetch that, and sometimes it's not even available to be fetched remotely. We've seen with even the same protocol as it's deployed across different chains, that the state of the data itself could be stored in a different manner. And again, that just adds complexity as you're trying to fetch this information, thinking, it's the same protocol, so it should be, very similar. But when you get into the details, you realize there are all sorts of interesting challenges to deal with. And so there are some solutions out there. I would say a lot of them are sort of these cookie cutter solutions that can be expensive, and they don't necessarily give you the feel of a seamless product experience. If you are interacting with let's say a wallet or an NFT gallery, making some trades, and then you get this link to an external block explorer, the look and feel is completely separate. It's a completely separate product. And so what we're aiming to do is to enable developers to build things that are just extensions of their brand, and powered by this underlying on-chain data. So that's where GoldRush Kit comes into play. And so the idea is that if you want to leverage some fundamental primitives of on-chain data, things like token balances or NFT data or transaction records, or even things like just a list of token holders, you can do that quite effectively, especially if you're building things in a hackathon. It's basically ready to go and easy to import into your application. And then Covalent effectively serves as like a data pipe that powers a lot of these powers these UI components. So why another UI kit? I mean, there's many out there. This is just a very small snapshot of some quick ones that come to mind. And they all have their own sets of use cases and things that they offer, but also a set of challenges that they bring. And I think what's exciting about sort of this focus on the front end experience and making it easy for developers to incorporate and build in this space is that these kits have to evolve and they have to get better. And by having more options to look and work with, you basically are able to pick the best features, and all of these kits will eventually evolve and get better and better. And so I think what it means is having more kits is sort of a healthy sort of representation of people caring about wanting to enhance the user experience in this space. And so what we bring to the table with the GoldRush kit is a set of tools that are effectively supported across our 200 index networks, including most of the subnets in the Avalanche ecosystem. It's open source, it's customizable. You can make and look and feel exactly as you want it to. And then we've spent a fair bit of time, and there's actually an element of what we're going to build as the next piece of this GoldRush kit around being able to have sort of very customized and tailored transaction views through this sort of decoding or decoder that we're building out. So, we've spent a fair bit of resources to ensure that, custom contracts, things like DEX trades, NFT sales, etc., are fully decoded so that when you pull this data into your application, it doesn't look like just a bunch of, letters and numbers. It's basically like human readable. So it makes your user experience a lot more richer. So where it sort of fits in, again, I think I kind of alluded to this at the beginning. We kind of started as a unified API provider on top of our index data, which is the database. And so what we're building out are these additional products that are underlying, or basically with the bedrock being the Covalent database. So we've got GoldRush. We've got Increment BI. So if many of you are familiar with various BI tools, or in the Web3 space, tools like Dune Analytics, it's sort of a similar type of use case where you can type SQL, you can get your charts. And GoldRush is a key component of this product suite that we're building out. And I'll talk a little bit about the bounties that we're offering. But effectively, what we're enabling is for any developer who uses the API or GoldRush or Increment to build their application is eligible for our bounties. So I'll get into the actual demo of GoldRush in just a second, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about how we've thought about this sort of kit in terms of the build and the design for it. And it kind of stems back to this principle. You can sort of look it up by Brad Frost around atomic design. And so the idea is that you can build, really beautiful, compelling user interfaces that are very modular by using this atomic design framework. And so you start with sort of the very, fundamental UI components, which are these things that we would refer to as atoms. And then you would combine these atoms together to form these molecules, which are slightly more complex UI components. And then you would take these and then build out what is referred to as organisms. And these would be like things like NFT cards, maybe a table of all your balances or your transaction records. And so you can then sort of combine these various organisms together to form what is called templates and pages. So the idea is you make this very modular. So if you go back and you change, let's say, the design of an atom, it kind of propagates through everything that you've built through all the way up to the templates that you would be using. So that's the way we've thought about the components as part of this GoldRush kit. Okay, so with that, what I'm going to do is bring out our open source repo. So let me just share this tab here. So this was the link that I shared. So it's an open source repo. The first part here, very simple, npm or yarn install to get it added to your stack. Here is just a little guide on how to actually implement it with this GoldRush provider. There is an existing example that you can literally copy and paste and use. And then we've got a few templates here that you can work from. And we've actually designed them to be basically one-click deploys using Vercel. So I'll show you what this looks like. And then the part I want to highlight here is you can actually completely customize this because it's built using Storybook. And so that's the part I'm going to start with, where you can kind of see in the Storybook interface how you can sort of customize the various components that we have here, and the steps for running it are highlighted. So if you run this locally, it will look something like this. Okay. So I'll start with the left-hand menu here. We've used the same categories that I talked about with respect to atomic design. So you've got your atoms, you've got your molecules, you've got your organisms. Just close this just to make this a little bit less noisy for a second. And so under atoms, you've got your fundamental UI components here. So this would be things like your address display. This would be like your avatars that you use. And then if there's a set of tokens that you're trying to represent, let's say for a DEX interface, we've got these template as well, where you can see the DEX and the underlying token or pool that you're interacting with. So these are just some examples of the atomic components that we've built. Combining those, you get things like your little account card. Let's make this a little bit bigger. So you got your little account card, which again ties the avatar together with some other little features. You've got like a NFT collection card, which has got a little preview of the NFT. And then where it gets really interesting is where we start looking at our organisms. And so let's take a couple examples here. Let's look at the address activity. So here is one component. This is actually all live. So if I go and update this address here, just give it a second to find itself, but it will basically update with the latest data that you've got here. Let me just figure out what it's stuck. Okay, so this is the demo.eth. It's just pulling this data. And so these are all the chains that this particular address has been seen on, including a couple of the Avalanche ones here. We've got our token balances list. So again, we've combined a few different molecules together to kind of give you this out-of-the-box data-powered UI component that you can then incorporate into your application. And then I'll go into a couple of these in a little bit more detail, but I just wanted to show you under the theme config examples of how you could completely customize it, which is just some built-in config that we've added. Again, you can go in and add completely your own styling to this. But this is how you would, for example, just try out things like different colors or different styles, your buttons, etc. So again, some very basic config to start to sort of seed the kit, and then you can kind of build off of that pretty quickly. So let's look at a few of these using some Avalanche ecosystem examples here. So let me just bring up a couple. I've just copied a few contracts, and I'll make it a little easier to. Okay. So I'm going to go to the NFT collection. So NFTs are obviously very popular. They're very visual. So it's an ideal set of components to build into a front end. So here, again, all the chains that we support. Let's pick the Avalanche one here. And then I think this is the contract for the Mambo nuts. Yeah. So again, let me just zoom out a little bit here. So this, again, live data that's being pulled using our API. So this is what the collection token list would look like. And then we've got the corresponding NFT detail here. So if I select the Avalanche mainnet, this is the address. And let's see here, just put in the token ID. All right, there's our Mambo nuts. So we got some of the attributes. I don't believe there's any sales history associated with this one, but if there was, you would see that here broken out. Again, this is all just templated, so you can literally copy and paste this directly into your application, adjust this if you like, but this would be live data coming from our API. So we also have a segment here for what we call our XY equals K. So again, this is like DEX AMM type of components. So you can see things from a pool perspective, from an individual token perspective, or from a wallet perspective. So let's look at a couple of these. We'll go to the XYK pool list here. So if you're familiar with the analytics pages on SushiSwap or Uniswap, that's effectively what we built here, and it's live data here. So I've got, let's see, on Avalanche, we'll use Trader Joe. And so we see that this is the list of tokens, the liquidity, volume, fees, etc. And so let's take this first one here, GMX to wrapped AVEX, and we'll go to the XY pool detail. And so here I will use Trader Joe. This is going to be Avalanche. And here is the pool for that pair. Okay, so this is the GMX wrapped AVAX pair, liquidity, volume, fees, pool tokens, and then just for a very quick sanity check, we can actually go and see the underlying data on the Trader Joe analytics page. And if you were to map this, you'll see it's pretty close. There's some delays, I think, with some of the data feeds. I'm not sure entirely on which side, but it would be pretty close. So you can actually build out, again, these DEX analytic pages really quickly using these components. And so that's the idea. Now, of course, this is just a seeding of components that we've thought about, that people have been asking for, or that we think might be useful. But really, what we want to do is get contributions from the community to add to this. So, what are some of the use cases and components that would be of interest, and then effectively take this GoldRush kit, be able to add what you might think is a useful component. And then if there's any like underlying data issues, or there's a missing API or method in the SDK that you're looking for, we'd love to help build that out for you so you can power these components. Yeah, so that's a quick overview of the storybook view of this GoldRush kit. Again, very fun to play with. It's actually a great debugging tool too. So if you're building out your own component and you kind of want to see what the user experience would look like and make sure there's no data gaps, or be able to test this, this is a great way to have a front-end visual and then be able to use this to check the underlying data. When you're trying to use a headless service like an API and be able to debug that, it's kind of hard to understand what the actual use case or what an actual end user is trying to distill from that JSON response. So this makes it a lot more visual and powerful for you to be able to do things like debugging. So even just in its own, from that perspective, it's quite useful. Okay, I'm gonna hop back over to the GoldRush kit and look at these templates that we've got here, and just kind of walk through the steps of deploying this. It's actually quite simple to do. So let's look at the wallet in the portfolio UI. I'm just going to click on that link. So this is, again, these are all like demo UIs that we've built, again, to showcase what you can do with the underlying components. So there's actually a link here to the a live template that you can play around with. I'll open that up in just another tab, and we'll look at that in a second. But there's also this nice feature that's been added, this one-click deploy. So I'm going to start this process, and then it'll take roughly a minute to actually deploy this through Vercel, and then we'll take a look. So if I just click on the deploy here, I'm just going to label this as my portfolio tracker. I'll make that private. So let's create it. Okay. So we create that. Next, this is where you will enter in your API key. So I'm just going to use a demo one here. Won't really do you good to copy this one. Okay, and now it's deploying. So we'll take about a minute to do that. But in the meantime, I'll kind of show you what the live version looks like here. So I can enter in any address. It's got one here that's got some activity on in the Avalanche ecosystem. So now this will fetch all the chains that this particular wallet has been active on. Let's look at DFK. And now it'll fetch all the underlying tokens that exist for this wallet on in the DFK chain. So these are all the tokens. I can actually also then go to the NFTs. And again, there is an element of optimizing the design for some of these. If you've got a wallet with a large number of NFTs, you might want to think about just how to optimize the data pull, especially if you try to reload it each time. So these are the NFTs. And then there's actually a nice little feature here with the settings, so you can actually change the color or change the border radius, and then you can kind of get a quick view of how that renders here. Again, just some very minor config elements to play with, just to give you a feel for how this template works. Okay, let's go back to here. So yeah, so this is the wallet and the portfolio UI. And let me just check if, there we go. Okay, so this is back to my Vercel. So at one click with adding in the API key, worked pretty seamlessly. And now I can go and actually try this out in my Vercel. There we go. So you get the same experience. So very easy to deploy this. Great way, again, to sort of test around and prototype, especially if you're participating in a hackathon. So there's lots of really cool little features that we've made available. There's another template that we've got that you can try out, and then we're actually building out a few more to help seed the kit with some off-the-shelf, ready-to-go templates that you can work with. Cool. Okay, so just quickly circling back to the Frontier Hackathon. So the Covalent track, we're offering $5,000 distributed amongst the top 3 projects using either the API, increment, and what we focused on today, which was predominantly the GoldRush kit. And then this QR code is to our Hackathon starter guide. I think there's also a link in the description of the hackathon under our bounty that you can go to, and it's got all the links to what we covered for GoldRush, but also for increment and for the unified API. Okay, so that's what I wanted to cover today, and happy to take any questions.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. Very insightful. Maybe let's give the audience a minute to think about a question. In the meanwhile, could you maybe share a bit more about what you would like to see building on top? Like you shared the bounties, but maybe elaborate a bit about what you would like to see in terms of like project building.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the most interesting one is for us right now is around the GoldRush kit. So being able to build out different components that might be of interest for your particular use case, being able to maybe build out a template. So if you're looking to build, let's say, something that might resemble like a block explorer for a subnet, that'd be a really interesting one. We're actually having those conversations right now to understand what might be sort of a unique Explorer experience for a subnet that looks and feels like their project, not this maybe a vanilla block scan template that might be used. So I think that's a really cool one. Of course, with the API, I mean, you can use it for all sorts of interesting use cases. I think you're really just limited by your imagination there. And then increment, if you've got experience with SQL, I think building out some interesting charts would be cool. Again, around the Avalanche and the subnet ecosystem. So being able to look at things like reach, revenue, retention for the various ecosystems. That's usually a pretty popular one that we like to see people build charts around.
Thanks a lot. And if developers have questions, what's the best way to get support?
Yeah, very active on Discord. I don't know for this particular hackathon for participants if they have a dedicated channel or something like that exists, but we'd be happy to participate there. We have our own Discord channel, so that's usually the easiest way to connect with us with questions.
I think that would be it. So thanks a lot, Harish, for this informative workshop and joining us today. I think the audience learned a lot about how to build UIs, how to use your APIs and the GoldRush kit. So we're super excited to see all the incredible projects building on top of Avalanche, and there will be more sessions like this one. So please follow us along YouTube and Binance Live to make sure that you won't miss any of the upcoming sessions. So thanks for joining us today. Hope you can keep building super cool, innovative projects and kick off the next big products in the industry. So thanks a lot and see you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.